Hey everyone, I am super excited about today's topic. We are going to be talking about everything you need to know to homeschool in Pennsylvania. And I have my dear friend Kristin here, who I will introduce in just a minute. But one reason we wanted to make this video, I know for myself, when I got started with homeschooling, one of the most overwhelming and probably anxiety causing things for me was, how do I actually report on my child? When do I start reporting on them? How do I submit stuff to our school district? What is required? Like, all of those details made me really nervous. And this video, we hope, will allow you to walk away feeling confident and prepared and fully equipped to get started homeschooling in Pennsylvania. In addition to that, I could have totally used this video. I don't know, Kristin, if you could have used this way back in the beginning, but I also wanted a list. I'm like, why is there not just a list that like lists out everything you need to do to homeschool in Pennsylvania? So in the description of this video, there is actually a link where you will get to download a free PDF of a list of the things we're going to be discussing today in this video. So that should be really helpful. Check that out at the end. So I say we just dive in. Let me introduce her to you all. This is Kristin Runyon. She is a friend of mine. She is a homeschool evaluator here in Pennsylvania and has been doing that for 4 years. She has been homeschooling her 2 children for 7 years. She's a former school librarian. She currently oversees the student tutors at Messiah University and has actually recently been partnering with another mom locally to launch a Christian Fine Arts Academy. So Kristin is amazing. She is like the person you want in your homeschooling corner, and she's going to answer so many great questions for us. She understands the law like really well. So I'm thrilled to have you here. Thank you, Kristin, for coming today.
Thanks for having me, Marion. That's really a sweet introduction.
Yeah, we're excited to learn from you. Okay, well, let's just get after it. So first, we're going to kind of break this into 2 chunks. The first one is going to be, what do you actually need to turn in? And then we're going to discuss, what do you actually need to do during your homeschooling year? So the first one, we'll discuss what you need to turn in at the beginning of your year and at the end of your year. And then we'll transition and discuss what needs to happen during your school year.
Okay.
So I think one of the things, probably one of the first questions most people would have, and that myself had, was, what age do you actually need to start reporting to your school district for your child?
So as of this school year, so the 2020-2021 school year, compulsory school age in Pennsylvania starts at age 6. So at age 6, you need to start reporting. If your child turns 6 after middle of September, end of September, don't worry about it. You can wait until the following year.
Okay, so 6, that's good to know, because it used to be 8, I think.
It did.
And now it's
dropped this year, so.
Okay, so that's great. So, okay, according to the law, what is required to submit to the school district? And then what is the due date on those items?
Okay, so you need to have a notarized affidavit. You need to have a list of educational objectives. And you need to submit medical and dental documentation. And all 3 of those are due by August 1st.
August 1st.
Your school district.
Okay, and it's August 1st every year?
Every year.
Okay, so that date does not change. So let's talk about the affidavit for a second.
Sure.
Maybe briefly explain what that kind of entails, or where you would find that. What do you do with it?
So the affidavit basically just says that you as a parent are going to give your child an education, and it's a legally binding document. It has to be notarized, and the affidavit, you can Google it. We're providing you with a link to one that you can just print out and fill in and go. But it also states that, you know, there's nobody living in the house that has a criminal record or has committed a felony. Basically that your child is safe being at home.
Okay, great. So yeah, what Kristin said, we're providing a link for you in the downloadable PDF. And so you can find the affidavit there, or you can Google it, like she said. So notarizing an affidavit, this was something that made me nervous. I was like, what does notarizing mean? How do you do it? Where do you do it? What is that?
It's scary. And there's lots of things in our lives that get notarized, like when we buy a house or when we buy a car, those documents get notarized. But it sort of happens without us knowing it. For this, you can, if you're a member of AAA, they offer notary services. Law firms will often. I've even heard that representatives and legislatures will, at their home offices, they will offer it. A lot of those places you need to have an appointment. There will likely be a cost associated with it. Personally, I go to UPS. I don't need an appointment. It costs $5 per notarized paper. I have 2 children, so that's $10 total. I take my license and I'm in and out in 5 minutes. It's beautiful.
That's so great. Yeah, Kristin had shared that with me and I loved it. I went to UPS as well, paid $5. I think there's a notary there like all the time.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, because I went in, and every time I went in, well, I had to go in twice for other reasons, but they had a notary there both times. So so it's super easy. You can just go to UPS, pay $5 and get it done. So yep. Okay, let's talk about objectives. You said that we need objectives. What needs to be listed on the objectives? And again, is there a specific one we need to use? Is it up to us to decide how we make it?
Yeah, so I would really recommend going to askpauline.com. She has some phenomenal samples of educational objectives. The law specifically states the subjects that need to be placed on that document. And I don't have them memorized, but things like arithmetic, science, geography, English, and it's English to include spelling and reading and writing. It gets pretty specific with all the different areas. One of them is safety. One is health and physiology, civics, history. So it really covers a gamut. But the thing you need to remember when it comes to educational objectives is that if you're writing them yourself and not just borrowing from an example that you find online, which is fine. Lots of us do that. I personally wrote them once and then I just kind of update them as the years go by. I don't rewrite them every year. They need to be broad. You're not going to cover everything on those objectives within the year. Public school teachers don't cover everything that they set out to do throughout a year. So give yourself some grace and just make sure that you have on there what the law requires you to have on there, and know that if you don't get to something, it's just not the end of the world.
That's great. Yeah, I feel like I think you mentioned this to me, that you reuse the same one. You basically change out the year and maybe tweak it just a little bit and then reprint that one each year. So once you have this set up, it's easy. Just save it on your computer and then keep using that same one.
Yep.
And then the medical paperwork that's needed, what does that look like?
Yeah, so a statement that says you are providing medical care and regular dental checkups for your child should be sufficient. The law is a little vague on this point. Public health law requires that immunization records be submitted to the school district for your child, unless you choose to go with the religious medical exemption. And then that is just a page that says, I am, for religious reasons, exempting my child from, and you get to check medical, dental, and then you sign it. And you can hand that in as well. And you don't have immunization records with that either.
Okay. And so if you're giving your medical records, does that look like, do I just call the dentist and they print like a form that shows that I took them to the dentist? Or I can just even write on a piece of paper myself?
You can just write on a piece of paper. The only thing that you have to submit that might be easiest if you called your doctor was the immunization report. But so many of us have online portals now with our doctors that you may be able to access that information digitally without ever making a phone call.
Okay, so that sounds pretty simple. Okay, So we just covered everything needed at the beginning of the year.
Yep.
So that's it. And all you need to do is literally you can just walk it into your school district's office.
Yes. If you choose to mail it, highly recommend that you send it certified mail. This is an important document. You don't want it getting lost in the mail. So having that little bit of tracking on it is wise.
Okay. That's great. Also, I would recommend, well, for myself personally, I actually called our school district and asked what they wanted, but I knew according to the law what was needed. So it was then at that point I could make a choice of what I wanted to submit or not submit. So if you want to call your school district, you can, but just know that the things that we listed, that is the law, correct?
Yeah, that's what's required.
Okay. So end of the year. So now, you know, we got our beginning stuff turned in. They said, you're good to go. We start schooling. So now as we wrap up our school year, according to the law, what is required to submit at the end of the school year and what are the due dates on that?
So the end of the school year is really simple. You need a letter from your evaluator that gets taken, you take it to your school district, and that has to be delivered by June 30th. That's it.
And that's it. And
That's it.
The evaluator letter does not need to be notarized.
Doesn't need to be notarized, doesn't need to have special stickers on it. It's just one small little piece of paper.
So and that's the only thing you turn in at the end of the year. Okay.
Yep. It's kind of anticlimactic.
Yeah. Yeah. You're like, oh, we just finished. Great. One paper. Okay. So how would you go about finding an evaluator?
Finding an evaluator can feel really tricky. If you know other homeschoolers, talk with them. Who do they recommend as an evaluator? The Christian Homeschool Association of Pennsylvania, known as CHAP, they have a list of evaluators on their website. You can just Google homeschool evaluators and see if any pop up for your general area. Some evaluators will do like a Zoom or an online kind of meeting with you at the end of the year. Others want to do in-person kinds of evaluations. So each evaluator is a little different. The key is to find one that has similar philosophies as you do when it comes to how you're educating your child. Your school district has zero say over your homeschooling program. It's the evaluator that determines whether your child has had an education. So if you and your evaluator don't get along, not that they're not going to pass your child, but it's not going to be a happy experience for anybody. So you do want to make sure that you and your child are comfortable, because part of the law is that the evaluator has to interview you as the parent, but also has to interview the child. So that is just important to keep in mind.
No, yeah. And I guess you could always, if you found an evaluator and you don't know them, you could probably set up some sort of phone call to maybe talk out, like, what do you expect? What do you want?
Yes. And I would encourage you to do that, because it makes your life easier, and it helps start that communication between you and your evaluator.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's great. Now I know that turning in a portfolio to the school district is not necessary, but oftentimes evaluators want to see a portfolio of some sort, usually. Yep. What needs to be included in a portfolio? And then does the evaluator choose what's in the portfolio, or is there a standard portfolio that the state provides?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the state does mandate that you as a homeschooler need to keep a portfolio. And the portfolio needs to include samples of your students' work. The key word there being sample. No evaluator wants to see a portfolio that has every single math worksheet, handwriting worksheet, grammar worksheet, science experiment. By and large, we want a couple samples from the beginning, middle, and end. We want to see the progress that your student has made. We also really love to see the special things, field trips, science experiments, special projects that you have worked on. The portfolio is probably the thing that stresses homeschoolers out the most, but it's really fun. in our house, we get at the end of the year, I pull everything out. I decide what's going in the portfolio, not my evaluator. And then my children help put it together. So it is a family project. It is not just something that mom slaves away with. Along with your portfolio, the evaluator is going to want to see a log, because the law states you also have to have a log. Now, this log needs to show that you have done your 180 days, because that's how many days or 900 hours. But you need to track that you've been in school for a set period of time. You also need to have a listing of either materials that you have used during the year and or books you have read. I say and or because the law is not specific on what it requires. Okay. It wants a log of materials used. Personally, I like my children to keep a list of the books that they've read, because it's fun to go back and say, oh yeah, that was the year I read Caddy Woodlawn, or, you know, I remember reading that book. It was just, I didn't like it, but now I kind of do. Yeah. And then I keep a list of all of the other like academic textbook, other resources that we've used. Because I have more than one child, there's going to come a point where I'm going to come back and want to use some of those same things again. So I keep 2 lists, but one my children are responsible for, the other I'm responsible for.
Okay.
So yeah, at the end of the year, your evaluator wants to see that portfolio. They want to see a log. And the only other thing that an evaluator needs to have access to is if your child is in 3rd, 5th, or 8th grade, they need to take a standardized test. Those test scores don't go to the school district. They are just seen by the evaluator. And some evaluators just say, did you take the test? And then check a box. So it really is up to the evaluator. I personally like to look over those tests because it gives me a good idea of where the child is, how they're progressing. So yeah, that's my own personal approach.
That's great. So, okay, so portfolio goes to your evaluator, not to the school district, and you're going to have samples of their work, your log, which is going to have your 180 days, and book lists, any other materials you've used. You might throw in photos of field trips you've taken. And then if you did do standardized tests, throwing those results into the portfolio.
Yep.
Okay.
You're good to go.
Awesome. Okay. So now that we've discussed what you need to turn in at the beginning of your year and at the end of your year, let's shift and talk a little bit about what we're going to do during the year. You've kind of touched a little bit on this, but I want to go into a little more detail with the 180 days. So basically how much school we actually need to be doing during the year. So I guess you already answered.
Okay.
180 days or 900 hours, you can choose.
So the law lets you choose. The law says you have, for elementary, it's different for secondary, but we're just talking elementary. For elementary, you need to be in 180 days or 900 hours. So you get to choose which ones you want to track. Okay. Frankly, it's just easier. Most people do days over hours.
Okay. And then the reporting that looks just like printing off maybe some sort of blank calendar and checking the days.
You can do a calendar and you cross off the days. You can do a calendar where you just write the day in. I've seen people print out 180 check boxes and then just check off as they go.
So you don't need to really list off what you did on every day. It's just that you did something.
You can. Yeah, you can, but that's not necessary. This is really where talking with your evaluator and seeing if they have a preference can make your life easier. They can give you guidance on that.
Okay, that's good to know. So when can you officially start counting the school days of your year, of your 180 days?
If this is your first year homeschooling, the law states that you can start counting once you've turned in your paperwork. Okay. So if you turned it in July, you had that time to be working. If you turn it in, just before the deadline of August 1st, then it's from that point on. But the law does not say that there is a specific start and end date. So you can start pretty much whenever, you can end whenever. Most people stop once they've got to that 180 days, but there's no reason that you absolutely have to.
Okay, that's good to know. So, and I think this is kind of a gray area in the homeschooling world, but what would count as a school day? Like for you to write down that you guys schooled,
yeah,
what would that feel like?
So the law doesn't say what a school day actually is. For me personally, we consider a school day to be when we've done reading, math, and one other subject. If we've done that, I count it as a school day. That may only take us half a day, you know, or a couple hours, depending on how motivated my children happen to be.
Yeah.
But that's my litmus test for a school day. Obviously, if we go on a field trip, that's a day. I'm not, you know, whether there's reading, math, or otherwise, that's a day. We just take it for what it is. So don't overthink it. Just enjoy, and remember, your kids are learning all the time, and so are you. So
yeah,
don't get caught up in the nitty-gritties of all of that.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so what all are we required to cover academically? And also, just to know, this is listed somewhere,
Yep.
right? It's like online.
Yeah.
Somewhere, yeah.
It's listed in the law, and actually Pennsylvania Department of Ed has kind of a homeschooling checklist document. It's kind of lengthy, can be a little confusing your first couple of read-throughs, but it is there. It does exist. I recommend checking out CHAP. They've got some really great quick start guides for homeschooling. But academically, you have the objectives. That is what you are saying that you're going to cover. Even if you don't cover all of them, that's what you're saying you're going to cover. So for things like math or reading, writing, those are things you may cover every single year, because our children don't tend to master all of what they need at an elementary level in 1 year in those subjects. But something like geography or grammar, you may put more on a rotation. We didn't really start formal grammar instruction until our one child was in 4th grade. That's just when we chose to introduce it. Another family can start it in 1st grade. Doesn't make one right and one wrong. You just have that flexibility and leniency in determining when in the elementary ages, so that's kindergarten through 6th grade,
Okay.
when they're going to cover those subject areas.
Okay. All right. So not necessarily every year does it have to be covered, but at some point in the elementary experience.
Yep.
So I just want to go through some of the more confusing categories of what we need to school on and have you give a brief.
Wait, it's confusing?
A little bit. I know, I was like, what is civics? I literally was like, what's civics? I don't even know. So let's start with civics. What is civics?
Civics is citizenship. So taking your kids to vote, teaching them about the presidential election, the 3 branches of government, what is a citizen's duty, when can you become president, going and sitting in on a citizenship. When we have people who have gone through the citizenship process and then become United States citizens, going and observing that, all of that would fall underneath of civics.
Okay. What about health and physiology?
So health would be how your body works, and physiology is how your body moves. So if you're learning about muscles, that's like what they're made of, the cells, where they are in your body. That's your anatomy, that's your health. Okay. Physiology is how they function, the pull, the friction on your bones, how the tendons work together, all of that kind of thing is the physiology. the
Okay.
movement
It's
aspect.
kind of health class a little bit. I mean,
Yes.
given its health. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Physical education. Now, what is required here? Do my kids have to be exercising every day for a certain amount of time? Like, do I have to teach them Red Rover? Like, what's required with physical education?
Physical education is just that. For our family, we've taken it and said, we want to instill lifelong healthy habits in our kids, not just a gym class that they attend. So while they have access to fun gym classes through our co-op that they get to do Red Rover and all sorts of other games that their mother has never heard of, in our home, every day they have some sort of exercise that they have to do. That's how we've structured it. The law does not say that you have to do a certain amount of exercise or certain types of exercise or education specifically. It just says your children need to be educated about physical education.
Okay, good. And as a remander, this goes for elementary. I don't know,
Right.
is that one different for upper, or is it?
No, that one stays the same. Yeah.
Stays the same. Okay.
Yep.
All right, let's talk music and art.
There's no specific requirements. So you can, an art class, making Christmas presents for your family or neighbors, studying an artist and then mimicking their artwork. All of that kind of thing works for art, and the exact same thing for music. You take piano lessons, you sing in a choir, you study a composer, you listen to different periods of music. All of that falls under music education.
Okay, nice. So I'm seeing a lot of freedom here, is what I'm hearing.
There is. There is. There really is. It feels like a long list, and that can feel overwhelming. But when you start thinking about it, it doesn't, so much of this you're actually already doing in your everyday life.
It's so true. We're already doing that. Oh, I didn't realize that could count. Yeah. Okay. Safety and fire safety. What does that look like?
So safety is not necessarily defined, but you want your kids to be safe. So teaching them how to cross the road, wearing a helmet, a seat belt, taking the stranger danger kinds of things, that would all fall under safety. The law is very specific that there needs to be regular and continuous instruction in the dangers and prevention of fires. So maybe you go to a fire station and learn about how the fire trucks work and the type of gear that a fireman is going to wear when they come into your house. That counts as fire safety. Okay. Checking out a DVD or reading a book from the library on fire safety. Walking your family through, all right, there's a fire in the house. Where's our meeting place? How do you get out of your bedroom? Stop, drop, and roll. All of that just within your own home, that counts as fire safety. Okay. Just don't forget to document it, because your evaluator will probably ask if you covered fire safety. Forget about all the other safety. Did you do fire safety?
I guess that's good. Fire is, dangerous. So that's a good one to document on. So, and again, you don't need to do that every year. Like, we wouldn't need to go to a fire department every year. That's like,
no. It is good to discuss that kind of thing every year, but no, you don't have to do like the field trip, or, you don't even have to cover that specific thing every year. So,
okay. Well, Kristin, this has been amazing. This, like everything we just covered, was literally, I probably asked Kristin all of these questions individually over like 7 months or something. I'm like, what about this? What's this? What's that? And then we're like, we should just make a video and like lay it all out for other people. So this is really, really helpful. Thank you for giving your time to us. If anybody watching this knows anyone in Pennsylvania who is homeschooling or thinking about it, feel free to send this video to them. Don't forget to check the description on this video to get the free homeschooling in Pennsylvania checklist that has been created. And if you have questions, you can feel free to connect with me on Instagram or anywhere below. And yeah, I think that's it. Kristin, do you have anything else you'd want to add?
No, thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. And yeah, we will talk to everyone later sometime in
Happy
another video.
homeschooling.
Later. Bye.
See ya.